Hello everyone, I'm Steve Daly and I work at Horizons in South Window. I got my start working with people with developmental disabilities, volunteering for Special Olympics. So the high school here would have their swim meets and I'd go on those days and work with some of the individuals there to help them go for the gold. And then in the winter time there is the Special Olympics out on Powder Ridge. We take a lot of really fun recreational normal camp activities and we modify them to make them accessible to as many people as possible. So the people that are coming to our camp may not be able to participate fully at a traditional sleepaway camp, but here at Horizons we make it so that they can jump on a horse's back, get into the lake and go for a rowboat ride, and go swimming in our specially designed Olympic-sized pool. Horizons is much more than just a camp though. Although we run our recreational facility here, Horizons also supports people at their jobs through our supported employment and options program. We support people at home with supported living, and we support people in educational programs through our educational support services.
In my program right now, like students, like from when they finish high school, they come to us and we want to teach them like life skills, right? Like jobs, like normal jobs in the community, being in how to do just shopping, how to go to the bank and deposit a paycheck, or just like, like any simple thing that we all do for them is new, so we have to teach them that. My goal is like for them to go home smiling, happy. The most important key is to build a relationship with the individual. And that's how I start. Like when I, like I said before, when a student comes from a high school right here, first I want to build a relationship, or like a bonding, because once I got that, then I can introduce, like my teaching moments. So one of my students, she went home, right? And then like 2 hours later, her mom texted me, and then she said that her daughter went and started doing laundry. And then she says, I never asked my daughter to fold the laundry, and she folded. And then the mom is saying in her message like, so why did you fold? And then because it's my job, mommy. And like I have been working and folding laundry for like 3 weeks already, and that like to me was like a success. This girl is becoming independent, and I love it. I like it. Sometimes it takes me like probably 3 weeks or 1 month to teach them one task, but one day do it, one day complete it, like that makes my day. I mean, nobody.
My name is Cameron Rowan, and I have been working at Camp Promise, been a volunteer there for 2 years now. At school they had a career fair, and one of the booths was for the JET Foundation and Camp Promise. So I signed up, and that's how I became a volunteer. So the JET Foundation has worked to find treatments and a cure for Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. It provides like educational opportunities for people who have Duchenne's, and also a source of community. Like they organize events and things like that for people with Duchenne's. Camp Promise is a week-long sleepaway camp where kids, teens, and adults who have a neuromuscular disorder can come and experience camp life. Now, people with muscular dystrophy are in wheelchairs, and so a lot of times they can't do everyday activities like we can. So at Camp Promise, we make sure to accommodate them and encourage them to try something new and kind of do something that they wouldn't do in their everyday life. They are losing their muscle function slowly. So progressively, one day they wake up and they're not able to do something that they were yesterday. One of the main things, so camp's a week long, and at the end, all of us counselors meet up and we kind of talk about the week. And one of the main themes that keeps coming up is they feel invincible and limitless at camp every time, and all of us get emotional about it.
Hello, I'm Christopher Scott, and I work at the University of Connecticut Center for Students with Disabilities. A little bit about my journey to get to the Center for Students with Disabilities is I when I started in K through 12 education, I was on an individualized education plan as part of a speech and language disorder. Through that, I became familiar with the services which were offered in K through 12, but at that point I didn't know what was offered in college. So once I entered college, I was no longer on an IEP and I didn't need services anymore, so I continued and I graduated with a business degree. Afterwards, I continued my career in student affairs at a small liberal arts school which specialized in working with students with disabilities. And at the University of Connecticut, we work with a significant portion of the population here, which some people do not expect. We have about between 15 and 20% of the population, I would say, is registered with our office to obtain services. So students who work with the Center for Students with Disabilities have a diagnosed condition or disability, and then we work with students to access accommodations to mitigate how their condition might impact them in college. Primarily, this would be either residentially or academically. Examples of residential accommodations that we might assist students with range from having an air conditioning unit to having a single room. So then for academics, we have a wide range of accommodations which students might utilize. The most common would be testing accommodations, which might be a reduced distraction space to take an exam, or extended time on assessment. The populations that we serve here at the University of Connecticut, for a student to be eligible for services here, a student would need to engage in the interactive process that we have, which means the student would provide documentation to confirm that they have a diagnosed condition, which meets the criteria for services here. So those conditions could range from being on the autism spectrum to having some type of vision challenge to having ADHD, and there's quite a few other conditions that students who we work with have here. Once a student has registered for services then and provide documentation, a student will meet with a professional such as myself to discuss how their condition impacts their ability to be successful while they're at college.
When I started this job, I never knew that I'd end up taking an interest in a career helping people with developmental disabilities. Honestly, it was my first full day of summer camp here at Horizons, just looking around and seeing all the love and support that was given to all of the individuals with special needs that were coming to the camp here, and realizing that, that traditional summer camp experience that I really valued and cherished when I was growing up was now accessible to people that would never get the chance to experience that otherwise. And my first night, I had to lead a campfire program with singing and songs and skits, and I had done some of that at my other camp when I was little, but I had no frame of reference for what the expectation was here. Very quickly, I learned that it was to just be yourself. A great life lesson that I've learned here at Horizons is that when you're talking to anyone in your community, we're always looking at what they can do and focusing on that instead of what they can't do. And by using this approach in life, I've really found it's been a huge benefit to opening up the world for as many people as possible.
Our goal is like to treat them like, like friends. You're my friend and we're gonna do this together. It's not like you do that and that's it. No, it's like a teamwork. We are together in this.
And they do live everyday lives like us as well. They're just in a chair. I know a lot of the campers, they each kind of find their own little passion and hobby that makes them happy, and they go and do it. For example, my friend Sam, who's a camper, is 22 and he is a drummer in a band, and his brother Ben he works for a nonprofit. They really are open to trying things that push themselves. Especially, I've come across a lot of campers who've been scared to do things. For example, a lot of times people who have muscular dystrophy, they don't swim that often, and they aren't able to get into the pools because they need a lift and they need pool floats and they need somebody there with them to make sure, because they physically can't use their muscles to swim, so they need somebody there. And we had a camper who only was able to go into the pool once a year at Camp Promise, and he talked about it the whole week, and every day you'd find him in the pool for a few hours, and it was just a great experience to see him because he absolutely loved to swim, but it was hard to accommodate him in everyday life, so at camp we were able to do that for him, which was awesome.
So at the Center for Students with Disabilities, I serve as a disability service professional, which works with students to identify what their accommodation needs are, but there are many other professions who work in here. So we have an accommodations team who works with students on accommodations. So for example, if a student has an accommodation which makes it necessary for them to have either a personal assistant or a lab assistant or some type of assistant or a note-taking assistant, we would have that accommodation team work and reach out to students to find people who might be qualified and can assist with those accommodation needs. We also have interpreting services here, so for some of our students who have hearing challenges, they might be able to access interpreters, which we would assist them with. There are all sorts of issues which arise all over the place, which is why it's really important that you're patient and you're understanding with what students might be going through, because how a migraine condition might affect one person isn't how it might affect another person with a migraine condition. Disabilities are unique in how they impact specific individuals, so just because one person might have dyslexia doesn't mean it's going to present the same way to someone else who has it.
It's such a great community of people. Everybody's so supportive, and when I went to camp the first time, I didn't know anybody, and there were campers who didn't know anybody either, but immediately feel like you're at home. My first year I was in a cabin with guys that were my own age. My camper was a year older than me. So it felt like I was just hanging out with my peers and my friends, and honestly, my perception changed because it's like talking to anybody else. Yeah, they've gone through something different than I have, but we found a lot of things in common by the end of the week, which was really great. I really had no understanding of the way that they lived because I've never been in a wheelchair. I don't have muscular dystrophy, so I can't possibly understand what it's like, but through asking questions and kind of understanding that they are independent.
We're constantly innovating on behalf of the people we support, so every year, even if everything went perfect that summer, we're still looking back and saying, how can we do this better? Through that vein of, facing obstacles, definitely with coronavirus, we have had to change our program completely. We've had to limit access in some ways, but we've ended up growing access in other ways.
What I would recommend for people who do want to pursue a career in this field is that you go on some websites and you just see what each college specifies is needed to access services with their departments. After that, I would recommend working with individuals with disabilities. For those of you who are in high school and interested in this, most of the careers require either some type of associate's degree or a bachelor's degree or higher, depending on where you're working and what specifically you would like to do. But it's incredibly important that you become familiar with the terminology, with the services which are provided, whether that's through, again, researching online. It could be volunteering at other institutes. It could be working with a special education teacher, K through 12 education, working within a resource room to kind of understand what accommodations exist. I would also recommend, if you have access to it, online you can review individualized education plans and testing and assessments, which would help you when it comes to understanding the types of accommodations and how we determine what is appropriate or not for students in terms of accessing accommodations.
I just don't know how to put it into words. It's really hard. It's more of like a feeling.